Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is my very first YouTube video, so I want to talk about my background first. I am from Taiwan and I'm currently an intern here. I took my Step 1 last year and I got a score of 244. So today I want to share with you the resources I used and some tips I found helpful during my preparation. But before we get started, I want to briefly talk about the right mentality first. That is, don't take Step 1 lightly, even though it is now pass-fail. I know some people might think now that it's pass-fail, Step 1 no longer deserve your time to study hard. But that is not the case. First off, knowledge-wise, you need a good foundation for Step 2 CK and Step 3, which now both still have a numerical score. And the reason I say that is because actually 60% of Step 2 CK is actually Step 1. So make sure you know your Step 1 material well. And for the other 40% of Step 2 CK is what we called what's the best next step questions. And for those questions, you need to figure out the diagnosis first before you can answer what's the best next step. So that is when your Step 1 knowledge comes in. Secondly, so far there is no standard study material for Step 2 CK except for maybe UWorld. So make sure you build a good foundation while using solid Step 1 study materials, like first aid, pathoma, sketchy. Lastly, the question styles in Step 1 and Step 2 are so similar. So if you study your Step 1 well, you already train yourself to get used to the questions and develop your own way to approach questions. To be honest, I think you should prepare Step 1 as if you were still giving a 3-digit score. That way, you don't even have to worry about whether you will pass or not because you know you will. Okay, now I'm gonna talk about the resources I used. I will categorize them into 3 parts: question banks, textbooks, and online resources. The first part, also the most important one, is question banks. Before I get into it, I just want to say, please do as many questions as you can if you really want to excel at this exam. Actually, that applies to Step 2 CK as well. The first one is UWorld. UWorld, hands down, is the best question bank. You have to use it not only as a question bank but also a study material. I personally also used MBOSS and USMLE RX. For MBOSS, I really like it, not only because its interface is really intuitive and user-friendly, but also the way they make their explanation really easy to read. For instance, they underline key sentences in their explanation. So you can simply just skim through the paragraph and gain the key concept or idea in a short amount of time. Also, they mark the difficulty of each question from 1 to 5 hammers, 1 being the easiest and 5 the most challenging. So you get to pick the level of difficulty you want to practice on. For USMLE RX, in my opinion, it is also a very good question bank. The reason I like it is because it provides the correlated first aid content in their explanation. For me, who take notes in my first aid, that is a very convenient information. It also made me feel like while I was doing questions, I was also doing content review at the same time. The second part is textbook, first aid of course, and pathoma. For pathoma, there is a series of lecture videos you can find online where Dr. Sitar explains all the chapters. I highly recommend you listen to them all and take your own notes. Dr. Sitar not only talks about pathology, he also touches on clinical diseases and their mechanisms. Now, if you go straight into the textbook, you might find it a little overwhelming. The content is a little difficult to understand, memorize. But with Dr. Sitar's explanation, I can assure you everything will get so much easier. The third part is online resources. The first online resource I used was Sketchy. Shout out to the creators of Sketchy. It's awesome. I love it. As a visual learner, I got to memorize so many bacteria and drug names, which I would never be able to had I didn't use Sketchy. The knowledge is so hard to forget once you have those images in your mind. In USMLE, usually those farm micro questions are straightforward. So either you know it or you don't. Know your Sketchy well, those will be easy points for you. Even in Step 2 CK and Step 3, they still test you on those stuff. I know Sketchy is a little pricey, but it's definitely worth the money. The second online resource I used was Dirty Medicine. Dirty Medicine is a YouTube channel. It has many high-yield content to help you memorize stuff. In the videos, there are several very useful mnemonics, diagrams, making those complicated topics a lot easier. Some classic ones like transfusion reactions, glycogen storage diseases, familial dyslipidemia, and ethics even. Those videos really helped me gain a lot of points. Now move on to the tips. For tips, I will divide it into 3 parts: preparation, dedicated, and 1 week before the exam. Now the first tip during the preparation phase is do as many questions as you can. I personally used 3 question banks and I did nearly 10,000 questions. The logic behind it is that it gives you the time and space repetition that you need. If it's an important topic, it will definitely show up a lot in different shapes and forms. You will be familiar with it because you have seen it all. So when the question comes up, you will be able to recognize it and more likely to choose the correct answer. Okay, the second tip I'm gonna give you is highlight the corresponding first aid content after each run question. After doing it thousands of times, you will find yourself finish reviewing first aid once without even noticing it. Not only that, you also get yourself a customized note in which you recorded all your weak areas and those high-yield topics. Marking in first aid is like establishing a little map in your brain. It helps you organize and memorize those knowledge. The third tip I want to give you is do not start your self-assessments late. I suggest you do 1 to 2 self-assessments before your dedicated period. The reason I say that is you need to know where your baseline is and give yourself some time to improve your study plan. According to my experience, I saved my self-assessments for my dedicated period. And I really wish I didn't do that because the first self-assessment, I got only 228. I was so disappointed and also anxious because at that time, I only had 1 month left. So don't make the same mistake that I made. Start your self-assessment earlier. I'll proceed to the dedicated phase. The first tip is do your second pass. By doing so, you make sure all the important knowledge retains. Also, doing question is the most important way to memorize stuff. If you really don't have time to do second pass, at least make sure you go over the incorrect again. The second tip I'm going to give you is content review. Make sure you review first aid at least twice before the exam. Personally, I didn't do content review until the very last month prior to the exam. I thought doing questions was enough, but that is not the case. After taking my first couple mock exams, I found out my score could never break 235. But after 1 pass of first aid content review, my score jumped to 243. With content review, you get the wholesome idea of all the material they want to test you on. Doing questions is important, but it's like drawing the dots. You have to do content review to connect those dots. That's how important it is. Now it is 1 week left. What do we do? There are 4 things I recommend doing. Number 1, Pothoma first 3 chapters. These chapters are super high yield, Those contents are hard to memorize, I know, but once you do, there are 3 points. Number 2, free 120. It is very expensive if you take it outside the US. Here in Taiwan, it costs $180, but it is worth it. It simulates the test day, puts you in the same environment. I suggest you book it 3 to 4 days before the exam. So when the big day comes, you will feel calmer because you already went through it once. On my test day, I even got to sit in the same spot. It 100% reduced my anxiety. Next, first aid rapid review session. As the test day getting closer, you are gonna feel so nervous. After reviewing all the materials, you feel exhausted. Rapid review session only takes you 4 to 5 hours to finish, especially the biostat part is definitely worth a read. Every important equation is in there. When I was preparing for Step 2 CK, I often went back to it. Memorize them well, you will go a long way. Lastly, no studying the day before the exam. It is important that you keep your mind in a neutral state to prevent yourself from overthinking. I suggest you use the day to relax, exercise, and prepare all the stuff you need the next day. Alright, those are the tips I want to give you. At the end of the video, I want to say USMLE is a long journey. During the process, you would definitely feel a lot of ups and downs, but trust every moment, trust every question you did, trust every note you write down. They will pay off. It is more like running a marathon than a sprint because we spend months preparing for it, not weeks. So it's important that we maintain a balanced lifestyle. Go exercise. You might not see the effect right away, but you will definitely see it in the long run. Also, maintain your social life as well. Friends and family are your biggest emotional support. Alright, that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching. I wish you all good luck. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I'll see you next time.